Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Big Questions, Small Steps. My name is Amanda, and I'm so glad that you could join me today. Today, we are embarking on our last video for the New Testament. It's been a while, I know, but it's also important, I think, especially with many of my viewers struggling with many of the same questions that I have, and some also not having the experience of growing up as a Christian. So in today's video, we are going to look at how Jesus called the disciples that surrounded him and supported him through his preaching. We're going to look at why, how, and of course, we're going to talk about if we have questions. So please join me for talking about Jesus and the disciples. So it's well known by most Christians that Jesus had 12 disciples. These were like his best friends, his go-tos, his right-hand man. They were the ones that were around him all the time. They were the ones that supported him all the time. They were also the ones in reading the New Testament that said a lot of things about Jesus and made him kind of a bigger deal than he initially was. They were the ones that first stated that, oh, he is the Messiah. He's the Son of God. Jesus doesn't come full out and say, I am the Son of God, until his friends have already said it. So he'll say, I am who I am, things like that. But it was his disciples that first named him as the Messiah. So today we're going to talk a little bit about how he called some of them and why that raises some concerns for me, okay? When we're talking about the disciples and calling them with the students, remember I taught Sunday school, like kindergarten-ish age, and I also taught confirmation level. So 7th, 8th, 9th grade years I would teach. We talked about how the people that you have around you can support you and make you better, or they can lead you to make choices that are not the best. And that's basically all we talked about with the disciples, is that the people that you're around can either make you better or can pull you down. It was more that we focused on that in the 7th, 8th, and 9th grade years, because middle school and figuring out your social issues is tough. So we're going to take a peek at the stories from the Bible. So we are reading from the New Good News Bible and using today's English version. We are going to be jumping around in the stories today because they just happen in random orders and there's no rhyme or reason. So different versions just make more sense to read in a certain order. We're going to start in the New Testament book of Luke. We're going to start with chapter 5, verses 1 through 11. Chapter 5, verses 1 through 11. And in this section, Jesus is actually calling the first disciples, okay? It says, one day, Jesus was standing on the shore of Lake Kerimmon while the people pushed their way up. He's always on a lake. Did you notice that? He's very frequently on a lake, on a boat, in the water. I wonder what that means. What is that supposed to symbolize? Water is typically thought of as like a purifying substance, but he's always on the water. He's always in a boat. He's always trying to get away from people who are following him. It's very ironic to me, very questionable. Like, that's strange. Okay, anyways, I digress. They were on his way to listen to the word of God. He saw 2 boats pulled up on the beach. The fishermen had left them and were washing their nets. Jesus got in one of the boats. Nice. So he's just going to get in somebody's random boat and push it off. It belonged to Simon, and he asked him to push off from the shore. Jesus sat in the boat and talked to the crowd. When he was finished speaking, he said to Simon, "Push the boat out farther into the deep water, and you and your partners let down your nets for a catch." "Master," Simon answered, "we worked hard all night long and caught nothing. But if you say so, I will let down the nets." They let down and caught such a large number of boats that the nets were about to break. So they motioned to their partners in the same boat, in another boat, to come and help them. They came and filled both boats full of fish, that the boats were almost about to sink. When Simon Peter saw what had happened, he fell on his knees before Jesus and said, "Go away from me, Lord. I am a sinful man." He and the others with him were all amazed at the large number of fish they had caught. The same was true for Simon's partners, James and John, the sons of Zebedee. Jesus said, "Simon, do not be afraid. From now on, you will be catching men." They pulled the boats up onto the beach and left everything and followed Jesus. Okay, so I remember teaching this story and always kind of stressing the fact that with God, all things are possible. So if God had you fishing all day and you caught nothing, and all of a sudden God says, "Fish one more time," and all of a sudden you have this abundance of fish, that's what we would teach the kids, is that with God, all things are possible. We didn't necessarily teach about Jesus being the person that did it. It is interesting, and you'll notice it in the subsequent stories. Whenever somebody is thought to be a believer of Jesus, they're encouraged to leave everything, take nothing with them, just follow Jesus. Trust and believe that Jesus will be their light and their truth, and they won't need for anything. I struggle with that. I understand the promise of if you believe, it will happen, but at the same time, the God I know wants you to take steps to take care of yourself. So why would he have you just abandon everything to follow somebody and not have any food, not have anything that goes with you? Certainly you can trust that he's going to provide for you, but it's almost like they have to leave everything behind to put more mysticism, to put more onus on the fact that Jesus is this miracle force that is making everything happen. And I unfortunately just don't buy into that. Okay, let's take a peek at another one. So this time we're going to jump to the book of Matthew, and we're going to read about Matthew in chapter 9, verses 9 through 13. And this time he's going to call a guy named Matthew. Okay? That's what it's called. Okay, Jesus left that place, and as he walked along, he saw a tax collector named Matthew sitting in his office. He said to him, "Follow me." Jesus got up and followed him. While Jesus was having a meal at Matthew's house, many tax collectors and other outcasts came and joined Jesus and his disciples at the table. Some Pharisees saw this and asked the disciples, "Why does your teacher eat with such people?" Jesus heard them and answered, "People who are well do not seek a doctor, but only those who are sick. Go and find out what is meant by the scripture that says, 'It is kindness that I want, not animal sacrifices.' I have not come to call respectable people, but outcasts." So that story in particular we use to kind of reiterate the fact that Jesus and God love all, and you don't have to be perfect to be loved by Jesus. Talking about that he was friends with tax collectors, and he was friends with prostitutes, and he was friends with all these untouchables, if you want to call them that. It's just interesting that they have to leave everything. And I don't like that he's constantly saying, "Well, you won't understand because you're not a believer," and he's just pushing back. I don't care for that. That doesn't make sense to me. In that same portion, there's a portion called The Would-Be Followers of Jesus. I'm in Matthew chapter 8, verses 18 through 22. It's also found in the book of Luke, verses 9 through 50. Chapter 9, verses 57 through 62. And this is a little bit interesting. It says, when Jesus notices the crowd around him, he orders his disciples to go to the other side of the lake. Again with the water. Again with the water. Why is he always trying to distance himself from people? I don't get it. There's something about the water, something about you can see it, but it's still mystical. And there's a distance factor there. There's something special about that. A teacher of the law came to him. Teacher, he said, I am ready to go with you wherever you go. Jesus answered him, foxes have holes and birds have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lie down and rest. Another man who was a disciple said, Sir, first let me go back and bury my father. Father, follow me, Jesus answered, and let the dead bury their own dead. So that passage, I'm going to readily admit, we never taught to the kids, and I think there's a specific reason why. That passage in particular, to me, reads very much like a big celebrity who has this long list of demands and they think that they are the best thing ever. And, well, I don't want to be burdened by this, or I don't want to be burdened by this. Like, no, if you're going to follow me, then you're going to follow me. And if not, then no. You want to go bury your father? Oh, how terrible. No, I'm not going to let you take a couple of days or a couple of hours and do that. If you want to follow me, then you have to leave right now. Really? Because I'm pretty sure in the commandments that were given by God, it says, honor thy father and mother. So honoring them in their life, honoring them in their death, taking care of them, wouldn't that be part of what you were supposed to do for God? But now Jesus is going to supersede that, and you're just supposed to say, forget it. Somebody else will take care of that. I don't need to do that. It seems like he's changing the rules. It seems like he's trying to pull more focus onto himself and refrain from focusing on what God is giving and doing. As he's getting more disciples, the focus seems to be making Jesus shine brighter. The focus of Jesus and his mysticness is shining brighter all the time. And just me and my knowledge, he's not the one and only. He's not, and he's just a man. So when you're trying to make somebody bigger and bigger all the time, I just don't have energy to entertain that anymore. That's not what I believe. That's not what I know. So the next part we're going to look at is we're going to look in the book of Luke, chapter 5, verses 27 through 32. Okay, this portion is also found in Matthew, chapter 10, verses 1 through 4, and Mark, chapter 3, verses 13 through 19. Here we go. So it says, at that time, Jesus went up a hill to pray and spent the whole night there praying to God. When day came, he called his disciples to him and chose 12 of them, among whom he named the apostles. So he had this giant following of people as he's going along. So all I can picture is like the Swifties that follow Taylor Swift and they think that she's like the best thing ever, and they'll go to all these different places, and there are people who, when she had her album released, would take off of work and they would just listen to it on repeat. There are these people who are his followers, and basically he has all these people gathered, and now he's going to pick out his 12 favorite disciples, and now those are going to be called apostles. Those are the best ones. Those are the most loyal ones. So he called them the apostles. Simon, who he had named Peter, so he changed his name, and his brother Andrew, James and John, Philip and Bartholomew, Matthew and Thomas, James the son of Alphaeus, and Simon, who was called the Patriot, Judas the son of James, and Judas Iscariot, who became the traitor. So he takes from that large group of people following, now he has his core people. Okay? Now, the reason for having the disciples was supposed to be to have the people around you who would not be yes men. They would encourage you to be better, things like that. But that's not what Jesus did. Jesus had different plans for his disciples. We're going to read about it in Matthew chapter 10, verses 1 through 4. This portion is also found in Mark chapter 3, verses 13 through 19, and Luke chapter 6, verses 12 through 16. So we're going to read a little bit farther. So Jesus called the 12 disciples together and gave them the authority to drive out evil spirits and to heal every disease and every sickness. These are the names of the 12 disciples, the 12 apostles. Okay, so I just read them before. I'll read them again. First, Simon, called Peter, his brother Andrew, James and his brother John, the sons of Zebedee, Philip and Bartholomew, Thomas and Matthew, the tax collector, James, the son of Alphaeus and Thaddeus, Simon the Patriot, and Judas Iscariot, who betrayed Jesus. Now, these 12 men were sent out by Jesus with the following instructions. Do not go to any Gentile territory or any Samaritan towns. Okay, so Gentiles were basically, there were different groups of people. There were Jewish people, there were Gentile people who were not Jewish people. There were different belief systems. So Jesus is basically saying you can go to these different areas. Do not go to any Gentile territory or any Samaritan towns. Those would be the groups that would be most welcoming typically for Christians at that time, okay? Instead, you are to go to the lost sheep of the people of Israel. Go and preach, the kingdom of heaven is near. Heal the sick, bring the dead back to life. Heal those who suffer from the dreaded skin diseases and drive out demons. You have received without pay, so giving without being paid. You are not to carry any gold, silver, or copper money in your pockets. Do not carry a beggar's bag for your trip, or an extra shirt, or shoes, or a walking stick. A worker should be given what he needs. When you come to a town or a village, go in and look for someone who is willing to welcome you and stay with him until you leave that place. When you go into a house, say, "Peace be with you." If the people in the house welcome you, let your greeting of peace remain. But if they do not welcome you, then take back your greeting. And if some home or town will not welcome you or listen to you, then leave that place and shake the dust off your feet. I assure you that on the day of judgment, God will show more mercy for the people of Sodom and Gomorrah than the people of that town. So basically, Jesus has said, okay, from my followers, you are my main people. Now go out and do all these good things in my name, bring all these people back to me. He's not doing as much of the work anymore. His disciples were sent out to do all these different things. Now, his disciples were sent out because he needed more people to talk about him. He needed more people to believe in how awesome he was. If you are a singer and you have a one-hit wonder, people don't make as big of a deal about it. Okay? People need people around to boost up that energy. Taylor Swift wouldn't be nearly as amazing an artist and accomplished as an artist if she didn't have all the fans that were around her talking about how amazing it was, piping up her new album coming. And that goes for any artist. It goes for any actor. It goes for any movie. If a movie is coming out and it's not talked about, the chances of it being a box office hit are pretty slim because people don't know about it. So by sending out his disciples, he was trying to gain more enthusiasm for his efforts. He was trying to make himself into a better, bigger person. I view that with my knowledge now as he was just trying to be a bigger person than he was supposed to be. He wanted more fame. He wanted more attention. He wasn't doing things to show God love. He wasn't doing things because he wanted to help make the world better. He wanted to do things to get the fame and the accolade. It's not the same meaning. He doesn't need disciples, in my opinion, because he doesn't deserve to be the leader. He's just a man. Everybody around him was creating so much hype that he turned into this big thing. So that's my issue with Christianity in a nutshell. I don't believe in Jesus. I don't believe in the hype, and I have no use for him. I don't need a middleman. I don't want someone to be the headliner of the show. I want to talk directly to God. I don't need an opening act. I don't need a puppet show. I don't need that. I don't need something in between. I need God. And I certainly don't need a whole bunch of people saying, "Oh, didn't you hear? He did this. Oh, he did this." Great. More power to you. So that's me. That's my journey. That's my issues. I learned more. Growing up, Jesus was a huge part of my life. But as I learned more, I had more questions than I could answer. I was told that I just needed to lean on blind faith. And that only worked to a certain degree for me. And as I gained more knowledge of history and events, I couldn't see the story that I was told so long and just pretend I didn't have this knowledge anymore. Jesus didn't make sense to me. Does it matter if he has 12 disciples, 24, or 2? It doesn't matter to me because I don't need Jesus. I need God. And that's my journey. Because the more I know, the more I grow. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. You gained some different insights and you maybe had your thinking challenged a little bit. Maybe it resonated with things that you've questioned, or maybe I just confirmed what you already knew. Every time we learn something, we grow, our synapses in our brain get stronger, and that's the purpose of this channel. Let's think and grow and learn together. So please, if you like this video, go ahead and like this video in particular with that little thumbs up, and click our subscribe button so you can hear all of our videos as soon as they post. Until next time, take care.